Okay, hello everybody and welcome to TNM Unplugged, our wonderful podcast that is uplifting your mind, your heart, your soul, and getting you to become a most beautiful versions of yourself. And today with me, I have a very, very dear friend and colleague and partner in crime, as I said, when it comes to coaching, Marcia Reynolds. Welcome, Marcia.
Thank you, Zoran. It's really great to be here.
So what can I tell you about Marcia to start this podcast? You know, there's so many things I would love to share about Marcia and her wonderful accomplishment and achievement in her life. But I'm just going to use a few highlights just to the people who do not know Marcia to know a little bit more about her. And first of all, you can read about Marcia at her website, covisioning.com, which is an amazing resource for people who want to grow and learn and develop, especially within coaching professions. So Marcia, I mean, she was one of the first master certified coaches in the world, which is a huge accomplishment. She's one of the pioneers of coaching profession. So very, very early on when coaching was a baby infant and people jumping and thinking, oh my God, what is this new profession called coaching? How can we benefit from this? Marcia was one of the first people that jumped into it and became one of the first master certified coaches in the world. And then since then, she was a pioneer in coaching industry. A lot of the new coaches, existing coaches, coaches who want to move to advanced level of themselves are looking towards Marcia for guidance, inspiration, for new content. And she has consistently provided this throughout the years. And she was one of these, what I call goddesses of coaching. So I'm really, really, really grateful, Marcia, once again, that you're with us today. Few other things about Marcia. She was the past president of International Coach Federation. Some of you might know this. If not, you go to the ICF.com or internationalcoachfederation.com to learn more about coaching profession as well. Recent accomplishments of Marcia. She was named number 5 of the world top 30 professionals by 2020 Global Gurus, which I think is something significant. I would love to be on that list one day when I grow up. But that tells you about Marcia's status as well. You know, when you get this nomination and also, you know, you get recognized as well as somebody who is an influencer within our industry as well when it comes to coaching. Also, Marcia was a guest speaker and trainer. She had her TED Talks as well. And she is author and has published few books. You know, Marcia, why don't you tell us about your books? I think it's important that you share something about your body of work as well.
Okay. You know, Zoran, though, the global gurus, somebody mentioned the other day, so I'm number 5, but I'm number 1 woman on the list. And he said, you're the queen of coaching. And I'm like, I love that. I like being the queen of coaching. So, you know, I've always wanted to be a writer. So people say, well, how do I write a book? Well, I always ask them, do you like to write? My first book actually sits out in my garage. And then I wrote out Smart Your Brain, really helping people get present and understand how their emotions hijack their brain. And, you know, I was doing a lot of leadership training, and but I kept getting deeper into coaching. And so my last 2 books are The Discomfort Zone, I wrote a few years ago, because I was seeing that leaders and coaches really struggle with discomfort when being uncomfortable is a powerful moment. And so I wanted them to understand this is good. You know, walk people through the fire, you know, don't run away. And then the last book is Coach the Person, Not the Problem, where I've really brought together all these years of us working with coaches all over the world. What's their greatest challenges? What's their struggles? How can I help them? Whether they're new or experienced in coaching, what are some of the things that maybe they've forgotten or they're missing? And so I wanted to share that in a book, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, and the book is kind of selling globally. I get from all our people within our industry and beyond how significant that book is in their ongoing personal development. And today we're going to talk about that as well. You know, in this podcast, we're going to unfold and talk about where is coaching going next, so to say. What is the breakthrough for the coaching profession? And actually, what does it mean to coach the person, not the problem, especially for the people who are coaches or people who are using coaching as a life skill or using coaching in their corporate or business work. I think that's a significant shift to understand what really happens when you focus on person, right? So let's dive into that. Let's dive into that from your perspective. When you were writing this book and you were focusing on that topic and you were thinking about this will be a good content to write right now. The world needs this.
Yeah.
I need to share this. What came through your mind and why did you get into that space? And what is the significance of that topic for you?
Yeah. Well, I think it really defines the distinction of coaching, which is still blurry and confused and resisted out in the world. And, I want to back up and say that for a very long time, for over 30 years, I've been studying what does it take for people to learn. I've been gotten degrees and experiences trying to figure this out. I was a trainer for years, and they'd go through the classes and they'd give me the happy faces, and then they go back to doing the same old thing. I'm like, this doesn't work. And so when I found coaching, I'm like, this is fascinating. It really changes people. It helps them to think for themselves and to rewire their brain so they behave differently without me telling them what to do. Mm-hmm. So I went on to research, what's the difference when we coach people instead of solve their problem? And that's when I realized coaching is the best learning technology we have, at least right now. Mm-hmm. That when you help people to think more broadly for themselves and they get stuck in seeing things this way, and if we can just open it up just a little bit even to where they can see a different possibility for themselves and their situation in the world, they know exactly what it is they need to do. Mm-hmm. And they will commit to that much more effectively and quickly than if I, were a consultant and telling them this is the best thing for you to do it my way, or a leader, it's you better do this or else. Mm-hmm. That doesn't really change their brain. It just scares them. So we want to change their brain and make them feel good about the change so they will continue it.
Yeah. And that's a transformational piece there, because I remember when we talked throughout our relationship throughout the years, you always said that willingness as well is an important part of that transformation. If people are willing and motivated to change, to grow, to evolve. And as you said, coaching as a discipline facilitates them to become willing, right? To jump into and transform.
Right. And that's an important point, Zoran. There's always this statement, well, the person wasn't coachable. And I'm like, was it that they weren't coachable, or was it just uncomfortable? And can we coach them to feel safe, to have this conversation? I've had people up front say, oh, I don't know about this coaching thing, and I don't really want to be in this program. And, all that crazy stuff that we throw out there because we don't want to face ourselves and we don't want to really grow because it's too hard. And when we coach them to move beyond that, they do become at least willing to try. Mm-hmm. And then once they try and they see the results, then they create a desire.
Right. Yes.
So yes, we can coach people to willingness. They don't have to come I'm ready to change at the beginning of the coaching session. We can explore where they are right now and what would be really powerful for them to step into and see if we can't go there.
Absolutely. And I think that's an important element to coach them towards that level of willingness. So they choose to transform. And the empowering space around this is making sure that we meet them, as you said, where they are, understand their resistances. As you wrote in your previous book, put them in this discomfort zone when there is a resistance of friction and I don't know if I really want to go there, what will happen to my life, right?
Exactly.
And then once when they get into it, that they say, yes, I'm willing to, I want to, because they recognize the benefit of them by themselves instead of anybody else saying to them, this is why, right?
Right. And once they see it, they can't unlearn it. It's there. It's like, I know that this is something I can step into. So I always say, information doesn't change behavior. Like, you tell someone this is good for you, you should do it. Wow. How many things do you know you should be doing, but you're not?
Many.
Right. No, you got to want to do it for yourself. And that's what we, help to create.
Yeah.
But, to be able to take the stories that we're telling ourselves, about, now this doesn't feel good, I'm not going to do it, I don't know the value, it's kind of a waste of my time. All those crazy stories that we create in our head to avoid what's uncomfortable or even thinking. Daniel Kahneman says, we're lazy thinkers. We don't even like to do that. We're just going to do what we've always done. But once I can take the story out of my head and I see it objectively, so it's not like me, it's my story, then all of a sudden I can see, what's not serving me and what would be better for my higher self. And so I step into that space because it's not so scary when it's just, out here. So even though, it is transformational because we're taking the stories out and shifting their stories, which changes their brain, which is a different process than just saying, so what's the situation you're facing? What have you tried? What's worked? What doesn't work? What's the consequence of what's wrong? All that stuff they could do on their own. But what we do is something that people won't naturally do on their own, is to look at their own stories objectively.
Yeah. And for me, it's fascinating that we make that story, we create that narrative, that narrative sometimes become us, and we identify with the narrative to the extent that we don't even see this is not us any longer. And from that space of seeing that narrative as a story and being able to relate to it, then you can shift it, right?
Absolutely. The brain, what people don't realize is your brain is a meaning-making machine, because we have to have meaning out of every situation of who I am, what I'm doing. When you wake up in the morning, you don't lay in bed and go, who am I? Where am I? We have to have meaning about ourselves in the world. That's the natural state. Yeah. But we don't stop and reflect on that meaning. And even if we do, then we just rationalize it. No, that's who I am, and people need to accept me for who I am, without even looking at, maybe that's not really who I am. Maybe I'm more than that. So because it's survival to live by our stories, we create them and we just naturally live by them. We live into our stories every day. So a coach, in neuroscience terms, is a disruptor, is a mental disruptor. I'm going to disrupt your patterns of thinking and your meaning, which then makes you stop and look at that. Once you look at it, again, it's a whole different thing, but you're not going to do that on your own because it's too threatening to the brain to do that.
I love that explanation, because you explain to people what's really happening physiologically in the brain as well, because sometimes we don't even know why is this happening in our brain, and we don't even understand when somebody tells us, great, as you said, we need to grow, you need to learn, you need to shift this behavior or get it into the new habit, and you're resisting. Why? And part of you is saying, I don't even know why. So now we understand why, because we're meaning-making machines, and those stories are something that we identify with. We have to look at them, shift them to be able to transform. Wonderful. Yeah. Now, let's dive a little bit more into the topic. A lot of the coaches that I've coached, or including myself at the early stages of my coaching, will be trained to always focus to resolving the problem. And sometimes when coaches are coming to the coaching profession or advertising their services, they would say, well, I'm here to help you resolve this problem. I'm here to help you resolve this issue. I'm here to, if you work with me, you're going to get into this problem-free zone. Problems will always disappear. So there is a whole emphasis on problem solution, resolution, overcoming problems and challenges. And it works on a certain level, but I think that in your body of work, you go deeper, beyond that, and you have a different take what do we need to do in coaching to be able to resolve those issues, but by focusing on person that you're coaching. So can you expand a little bit more on that?
Yeah. You know, as you're talking, there's two things I want to cover, but the first one, you know, both of these go back to early times when you and I both got into coaching and we were learning some technique and just what was available. You know, it's evolved so much since then as we figured it out. You know, we were just figuring it out then. So that we focused on people's problems at first was like, well, at least they had someone to talk to. In a safe space. You know, what we provide is a space where people can show up as themselves, and we may be the only ones that they feel that safe to do that. So I look at my early testimonials and my clients were like, thank you, this was so valuable. And I'm like, I don't know what I was doing, but I created a safe space for them. And that was the first thing. I cared. And they felt safe.
Yes.
You know, and so we did look at helping them to step forward and solve what was in front of them. But one of the things, I come out of the tech world. So, you know, I ran training departments for computer companies, semiconductor. And in quality, they always had that, you know, you don't want to solve the surface problem because the problem will just keep popping up somewhere else like a whack-a-mole. You know, that you need to get underneath and really look at the source. Well, it's the same thing in coaching. When I started to applying that to, well, what caused this problem in the first place? If we could solve that, then maybe the problem would go away for good. It wouldn't just keep popping up. So the first thing I think we started looking at is source. You know, is like, what's creating this? And so when we started to get into helping people to look at, you know, is there evidence for what you believe and what what you're afraid will happen, and having them explore, is this even a real problem, or is it are you inventing it? You know, which often happens. So that was the first step of really getting into doing a root cause analysis is what they call it in the tech world. But then the thing that I have found that I've really, really been focusing on in our training is something that was missed in our early years, I'm sure you would agree, was really getting into how do we help people identify where they want to go, what do they want to create instead of what they have now. If we only focus on the problem, then we're just solving a problem, you know, or expanding a topic. But if we flip it, you know, and say, so what does it look like if you were to create this, to have this thing that's irritating you now, that you're afraid of now, you know, and it's not easy to do that because they're so stuck in their problem, you know, and who's creating it outside of themselves. But if we can flip that and really focus on that, and as we go deeper, recognize it's evolving and changing, you know, and to keep bringing it back to, so what you're telling me is what you really want is this, is that right? You know, how critical that is to helping people even understand what it is they really want, because they usually don't know and they can't articulate it. You know, so there's, you know, big power in something that sounds so simple, but not easy to do. You know, so it really weaves into all of my coach training, you know, and helping coaches to do that. Because it's a concept in working with people that does change their perspective right away. And I know you look at that all the time with looking at, you know, the transformative space, you know, really what's beyond what you think is possible that we can create, you know, which is such a powerful moment.
Exactly. And that what do you think is possible beyond, you know, what you believe at this moment in time, and in creating that transformative space, it's the true power of coaching for me. And for me, exactly, moving beyond that, focusing on problem, but getting the person that you're coaching to really understand what they can co-create in their life, where they need to go to transform that situation. Because for me, problem is just showing up to give you a mirroring back from the life. Here, you need to pay attention, right? This is a problem in your life. You need to pay attention. But if you just keep on focusing on problem all the time, the problem might pop up differently or intensify. And you and I, we both worked in China, and sometimes, in China, I love this traditional Chinese medicine when they talk about that the cause of the problem, it's not where you think it is, it's somewhere completely different. And you need to holistically approach treating or coaching somebody for them to elevate that problem or to use the energy of the problem to create what I really want to create, right? So that coaching becomes much more creational in that space.
Yeah. Right, which is, what makes it so amazingly powerful for people, because we're actually, expanding and uplifting their consciousness.
Yeah.
Not just changing their behavior. So, it helps them in their life. It can help an organization, but I think it makes a huge impact in the world.
Yeah. That's expansion, and I think that's where you are going with your body work, as well as I'm moving that direction. And coaching is moving in that space, that we are expanding consciousness so that people can become a completely different versions of themselves. They can reset themselves. They can reinvent their life and move beyond what they ever thought is possible, right, for themselves into something different. Yeah,
absolutely. And what's interesting, Zoran? One thing I always recognize working in the corporate world for years is that change only came when there was a crisis. It's like, well, if it's not broken, don't fix it. That whole thing, which was crazy because the world is constantly changing, and if they didn't accelerate change and stay up with it, they died.
Yeah.
And many companies did. And but that was it. There had to be a crisis in order to initiate change. Well, we're living in crisis right now and huge uncertainty, even though we never knew what the future would hold, but we pretended we did.
Yeah.
Well, now we know.
We pretend, right? We're like, oh,
now we know. We have no idea. We have no idea. And so it's broken down a lot of our, the beliefs that have kept together. I mean, crazy beliefs. That we've persisted to hold on to. It's like, well, we can't anymore.
Right.
So now is the perfect time for coaching because there's an opening.
Yeah.
There's an opening that I have to reinvent myself.
Right.
And the world is quickly shifting around me. And how can we help people, again, step through this and to take this moment as a grand possibility instead of a disaster? Yeah. I think that's the great value and challenge of coaching.
Yeah. I love the language there. Great possibility and transformative moment. What I would love to ask you, I think, when I deviate a little bit from our topic and our audience, because a lot of the times, we have in this podcast coaches who are training to be coaches, or coaches who are professional coaches, already practicing coaches listening. But we also nowadays have a lot of people who are in that transformational, reinventive space, who've never heard about coaching. They don't know even how to use coach, but they do know they need to transform. And they see this situation right now, as exactly as you said, as a grand awakening, calling into something different. And they would love to use coaching and work with a coach to be able to support them to achieve whatever transformation they want to. So, so if you think about people who will benefit from this coaching, what would you say to them? How do you think they can use coaching nowadays to support themselves to transform their life?
You mean work with a coach? What a coach can do for them?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I was going to say we don't coach ourselves very well.
I know. Let me rephrase how they can work with a coach, because a lot of the people, they're new to, I know they're new to coaches. It's like, what can I do? How do I really benefit from coaching? And I know this is a basic question, but really it covers a lot of our audience questions.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm, a huge advocate for is using what's called reflective inquiry.
Right.
In coaching. So coaching isn't just asking questions. It bugs me when all those books about here's the best questions to use. That's what often is most powerful in my coaching is when somebody comes, especially now with all these things on their mind and all the problems, and I just drill it down to, so you're telling me that you have these two main things to work on. What's most critical for you now? It's like, oh, you just cut through the fog for me, and I can start to see what it is that I need to do to move forward. So oftentimes it's just the recap, of the major highlights and the looking at. Well, you said you had a decision to make, but when you explained it, you were so excited about one, but not the other. So what makes you think that there's really two possibilities? Or calling out the words should and but every time they use them. But always indicates a fear, and should indicates a conflict of values. I want this, but other people in my life don't. We see that in China all the time, right? But my family, but also Latin America, other people want me to do this, not me.
Yeah.
So just calling that out again makes people stop, and look at, wow, I said that, didn't I? And yeah, this is what I really want. And boy, that's getting in the way. So again, when we start to look at our stories, we can see the gaps in logic, or the, what John Dewey calls the inherited beliefs, the things we've been holding on to for years and years and years, and maybe even given to us by our families, that do not support who we are today. And my fears about tomorrow, when I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. And then we go deeper with looking at what is it you need to feel fulfilled in this life. What's missing? What's keeping you from moving in that way? So there's reflection plus questions that people can't do for themselves. That just having somebody, again, create a safe space,
right?
So you can show up and say what's on your mind, and the person won't judge you.
Yeah.
And just be where you are right now and really explore, so you can start to see, again, what's getting in your way. I want to say the word breakthrough doesn't mean this like, oh, I have this huge, great understanding in the world. It just means there's a crack in your story where all of a sudden the light shines through.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, wow, yeah, I can see something different. It was a breakthrough.
Yeah.
Which allows our story then to change or expand.
Beautiful, like poetry. I think especially for the people who are listening for this podcast to grow themselves, to understand how they can use coaching. That was really beautiful definition of what they can get out of it. And that light shining through this breakthrough moment, which defines the transformational moment for them, can be something significant. It really becomes a pivotal moment in your life when your life takes a different course. So instead of you just repeating the same old, and being entrenched into your story that is not moving and repeating itself, now is the time when somebody shines the light to help you break through, so the light can come through, and then you can begin the process of transformation and evolution. Wonderful. Wonderful. I think that now more than ever, that's what we need in this world, this moment in time.
Absolutely. Because again, the acceleration of change is exploded. Are we keeping up?
Yeah. What I also want to mention is that, there's so many other, personal development directions, and from meditation to breathing to yoga, through movement therapy, through psychotherapy. It's so much going on there. And I also passionately feel that coaching has a power right now in this 2020 where we are, because it's very practical. What I like about coaching and how you're explaining it, there are specific practical steps you can do to move yourself through this transformation process. The sense making is there. You don't need to be lost in not understanding yourself or not understanding terminology and work for a very long time to be able to get there. I think that the power of coaching in this moment in time, it's that you can engage, and immediately after a few conversations with a powerful coach, you can start, with your new direction or free yourself up. So, You feel the same, right? The coaching has this transformational, practical application for life.
Absolutely. Much of the things you mentioned and mindfulness and body awareness will relax your body and help you regulate your emotions. And right now, emotions are all over the place.
Yeah.
But doesn't necessarily change your thinking, and so, we need those are good practices that might open you up. But the coach then, just by simple things like, one of the examples I gave you, wow, you told me this is what you want, but then you said, but other people are telling me this. Who's making your decisions for you?
Yeah.
One reflection, one question can change your life.
Yeah.
So again, it doesn't have to be this, year-long process. How much value you can get just in a few, one session with a coach that can totally see a new way forward through this foggy forest that we're walking in.
Yeah, and a lot of people are in fog nowadays because, as we said, I don't want to go, in that space a lot, but this is one of these years or moments in our life, and globally, I can see as a coach when people come to me for coaching, or there is this sense of, I need to find a new direction. I'm lost. I'm in fogs. I don't know what to think. People even say, I don't know what to think any longer. I don't know how to deal with that uncertainty. I don't know how to go forward. And you beautifully said before, we always pretended we knew. Now we can't pretend any longer.
No, we can't. We can't. Yeah.
We don't know. So
being with the uncertainty. Zoran, we always used to teach leaders, you have to deal with ambiguity. Well, what's that? Now they feel it and they get it. But before it was just a concept. Okay, I need to do that.
So how can we empower ourselves to really be in that space of uncertainty and to find the way to exist or coexist and be with that? What would you say on that?
Well, I think one of the most important things for people, whether you're a coach or you're being coached, is to just accept, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. All I know is that we will get through this, and it's okay. I want to say one of the things you said is so amazing to me. This is the first time in my life where the entire world is going through the same thing. We had different crises in different countries at different times.
Yeah.
But now we're all going through this. So to say something powerful is happening here, I don't know what it is. It's not revealed itself to me yet. And that's okay. But just to accept this is all a part of the journey we're on. There's a woman who's a songwriter, and she wrote a song that was called, I'm Not Lost, I'm Just Exploring.
I love it. Yay.
So if we can just say that, I don't know where we're going, but it's an interesting exploration. That's fascinating.
And to give ourselves permission, to say that, because we're so conditioned and trained in our story. We conditioned to know, and you're expected to know from society, from family. It's all the basic conditioning we have in our lives. So to have that space to show up in the coaching conversation, say, I don't know.
I don't know what's going to happen. Right. That. And remembering too, that because the brain wants to make meaning. So you tell your brain, well, I don't know what this means.
Exactly.
And then you use your breathing techniques just to stay present.
And that was my next thing. We're so in tune because I wanted to mention that how important it is to coach ourselves to be present in this internal moment right now, which is something that is so significant.
Just the grounding. So, I don't meditate, but I walk every morning and I see the sunrise every morning. And it's something I can count on. No matter what I can't count on, I can count on the sun coming up every morning. And that just makes me okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever's going to come up. Yeah.
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
the same. I walk my dog every morning. I look to the sunrise, and and in this ambiguous, unpredictable world, I'm like, you okay? Look, there is a sun. Wonderful, wonderful. Ground, connect, be present. I think it's
Yeah.
very important for people to learn this presencing and for them to stay within
Hmm.
the present moment as much as possible and to learn how to navigate
Hmm.
this maze of mind that is trying to
Yeah.
get you to think about the next and next and next. So part of that whole process of coaching the person, not the problem, it's also enabling them to stay present and to explore within the present moment, right?
Absolutely. Because if we don't, the more emotions we have, the more we create the worst case scenario about tomorrow. Oh, it's going to be awful.
Mhm.
So we miss the beauty of the moment today, the awe of what's going on outside my window. You know, that again, my trees are still there, even though it's really hot here. And I have good friends, and we are going to move through this together. We will find a way.
Yeah.
And not to don't forget that. Don't forget that. And so I can just settle in.
Mhm.
But the other thing is too is to recognize we are all in a crazy emotional space.
Mhm.
So a lot of my research lately has been looking at it's not just anxiety. People have moved into anger.
Mhm.
And Carol Kaufman just sent me her latest blog post where she was talking about contempt attacks,
Mhm.
where we're attacking each other. And I'm like, it's so true.
Yeah.
And so not getting caught up in the negativity that's around and just knowing that because this is uh, new for me to deal with, that my emotions, my brain, my emotions don't really know how to handle it. So, like, I have a post-it note on my desk that says, be kind. To remind me to, throughout the day, as I get irritated, to just stop and breathe and be kind
Yeah.
and
I
be
have be
grateful.
compassionate. For me, it's the same thing. Be compassionate throughout the
Mhm.
day when this intensity comes through to breathe, to center, to calm, and to become compassionate.
Yeah.
I wanted to go in that direction again. We're so interesting because sometimes when you coach and work with people, the emotions are always the biggest challenge. And I know that you've been exploring and teaching emotional intelligence. This is behind you when it comes to your body work, but you're still using it. So nowadays, when we have these heated emotions of anger or frustration or
Mhm.
feeling entrapped or being in a
Mhm.
lockdown when you can't move, or you feel that somebody took your liberties or somebody took your freedom, basically.
Mhm.
What do you feel you would love to share with people who are listening to this to help them regulate or manage or transform their emotion?
Yeah.
What would be something that you think it will be valuable?
Well, I recently wrote a blog post called I Miss Me. I was talking to a friend of ours, Harriet, and I said to her, I miss
Yeah.
you. And she said, I miss me too. And I'm like, I miss me too. You know, and it helped me to realize that one of the first steps we need to take is that it's okay, that nothing's wrong with you. You haven't gone, crazy. And you might be snipping at people and angry, but it's because it's unusual circumstances.
That's it.
And again, your brain doesn't know how to deal with it. And we have this sense that the world has gotten too small and it's crashing in on us.
Mm.
And okay, so that's just reality. And I think the first step is just to say, it's normal, because
Mm.
that starts to decrease the emotional impact. Because when I add to my emotions, something's wrong with me, I'm angry and something's wrong with me,
Mhm.
then it makes it worse. So
Mm.
I'm angry, but that's because I'm just trying to cope with circumstances. And
Right.
we start there. I think that's the first thing, is saying, this is what's going on,
Mhm.
to accept it, and then to know we can breathe, we can shift, we can, I always say, take out your phone and look at your favorite pictures, because you'll find your family and your pets and,
Mm.
places you've been, and start to open your heart a little bit. So, we can do all those things, but it starts first with self-acceptance.
Mm.
Mhm.
Again, I'm just going to leave it in silence for people for this to sink in, because I think when it comes to emotion nowadays,
Mhm.
that level of self-acceptance, which is self-love, and that
Yeah.
level of giving yourself permission to really see, okay, this is a normal reaction to completely insane circumstances,
Yeah.
and having compassion for yourself in that space, and not judging
Yeah.
yourself. How can I be, that rude, or why did I react like that, and why did I say this in a petrol
That's not
station?
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Well, and I want you to know, Zoran, so I wrote that post and I've just had so many people thank me, just like,
Mm,
oh, yeah, okay, now I understand what's going on with me. And it's that understanding that gives them that ability to start accepting themselves and loving themselves.
yeah, yeah. Well, lovely title. I miss me too. Some- so So a lot of talking on different levels. So we talk to the coaches, who do know, want to know how do we move from the space of coaching the problem to coaching the person. And we also covered our audience who is curious about coaching and using coaching to grow and develop. Now, where I would love us to kind of move into and wrap up slowly, it's like practical tips and tools. I know that we always coach people to find out resources themselves, and we always ask them to become resourceful and dedicated learners. But at the same time, what I'm finding nowadays is that people love to know, do this or do this. This is the step one, this is the step two.
Mhm.
So let's see what comes up for both you and I, at this situation, at this moment in time. Where would you like to leave audience? What would you like to inspire them to do or practice or be in their daily life to be a better version of themselves, or accept
Mhm.
themselves, or love themselves more?
Yeah. I think the whole one of the main things is to remember we're just on this journey. When we look back at, well, for me, many decades ago, like who was I then? And where I've come now, it is different.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm appreciative of that. But it's not been easy. Though we go through dark times as well as light. And there will never be a time. We always say, well, when this happens, when I get done with this, it'll be okay. No, it's like I have a saying somewhere on my desk that says, I climb the mountain just to see the next mountain to climb. And that if we're not constantly being challenged, then we're reverting and we're getting dull and we don't grow. So again, it's just all a part of our growth, what we experience and then what we learn. And don't regret anything because it was just what you did. And what did you learn from it? Um, I had a really dark past in my younger years, and it's like, oh my God, it was the best education I've ever had, even though I have many degrees.
Yeah.
So I think just understanding that no matter what you do, don't call it a mistake, just call it a learning moment. And say, what did I learn from that I can now use going forward? So there's value in every experience. I think that's really an important piece. It's often what we do with people when we coach, because they tend to want to beat themselves up instead of say, well, that's fascinating. What did I learn from that? But, you can do that for yourself when you journal, and reflect at night. Instead of focusing on what was bad, it's focus on what did I learn.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. How empowering to be in that space, that every single moment in your life, every choice, every decision, it's
Mm-hmm.
there to support you to learn and grow and develop
Yeah.
and become a better version of yourself. And being aware, being mindful of that, celebrating those moments. You beautifully said that, it's not a mistake, it's a learning moment. What was the value inside of it? What did I learn? I used to say also that we move from this polarity consciousness, and it's good and bad, negative and positive. Oh, this was a great experience, I had so much fun at this one was horrific, oh, I'm so sad. So we get into understanding that each experience, being positive or negative, has this learning moment inside of it. And if you decode your positive experiences as well, there is a hidden meaning behind, there's a hidden learning behind that, and negative as
Absolutely.
well. So if you can synthesize and step into the unity, of our thinking and our being, and seeing all of this, especially this year when we're all challenged and we all, stretched, to different levels, and we're all polarizing and we're all judging, and then we get out of the judgment, then we do this, and especially right now, I think what you shared is the space to be. It's the space to practice.
Yeah.
What are we learning from all of this? And how can this empower us to the next level of ourselves?
Right. Let's not waste this moment.
Yeah. Let's not waste this moment. I think that's a great ending for our first conversation. I'm sure we're going to have much more. I just want to be grateful to you. Thank you so much for being and sharing your wisdom and being who you are as a force in the world, and for inspiring and empowering people on a global level. You know, your work is significant and loved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, more to come soon. We'll talk to each other in next few weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye for now.